Dixie Dean is one of the greatest centre-forwards that many fans of the modern game have never heard of. Responsible for setting new standards in the English pre-Second World War game, Dean revolutionised what a professional footballer could achieve, and in a time where the sport was far from the polished spectacle we see today, began to show the qualities associated with other 20th century footballing legends. But the question remains, actually how good was Dixie Dean? William Ralph Dixie Dean was born on the 22nd of January 1907 in Birkenhead, Merseyside near Liverpool, in the north of England. The origins of his name Dixie is steeped in relative mystery, with rumours including being taken from favourite songs or movie references. Whatever the truth, his family deeply disliked the nickname Dixie and preferred to call him Bill or Billy instead. Dean began at hometown club Tranmere Rovers in November 1923, aged 16. Tranmere were a small club, but provided Dean with a platform to showcase his talents and develop his skills as a centre-forward. He quickly established himself as one of the most talented young attackers in the country, known for his powerful shots, aerial presence, and an ability to score from long range. During the following 1924-25 season, he scored 27 goals for the club in just 30 appearances. That's almost a goal a game. At Tranmere, Dean proved to be a reliable and consistent goalscorer, and although his time was brief, it was an important period in his development as a player and a stepping stone on his journey to becoming one of the greatest goalscorers in the history of English football. Dean's talent eventually grew too great to be contained by a relatively small club like Tranmere, and he soon attracted the attention of several larger teams, including Everton. Dixie Dean joined Everton in 1925. He'd been an Everton fan since his father took him to Goodison Park aged 8. When he heard the club wanted to meet him, he ran 2.5 miles from his home in Birkenhead to be there. He signed for Everton in March 1925, aged 18, for a then record fee of £3,000. The transfer would mark a turning point in his career. Dean quickly became one of the most prolific goal scorers in the English First Division. At Everton, he was a fan favourite and an instant hit at the club. Dean's arrival at Everton was timely, with the Merseyside club looking to build a team that could compete for top honours in the English top league. With Dean leading the line, Everton had a striker who could score goals regularly and give the team the cutting edge in front of goal. His impact on the team was immediate, and he quickly became a key player. During the 1925-26 campaign and his first full season, he scored 32 goals. The 1927-28 season was the outstanding year for Dixie Dean, and he achieved one of the greatest goal-scoring feats in the history of English football. During the campaign, he netted 60 times in just 39 appearances, a record that still stands today, and all at the age of 21. His incredible accomplishment earned him widespread recognition as one of the greatest goal scorers of all time, and cemented his place amongst the legends of English football history. Dean scored in each of his first 9 matches of the 1927-28 season, including all 5 in a 5-2 home defeat of Manchester United. After 21 games, he'd already scored 33 goals, including 3 hat-tricks. To further highlight his superiority, above most other strikers of his time, Burnley's George Beale finished second to him in the First Division scoring table with 35 goals, a full 25 goals behind Dean. That season also corresponded with a time of great success for Everton, and Dean's incredible goal-scoring feat was a key factor in the team's success. In the same 1927-28 season, Everton won the First Division title. Dixie Dean was considered one of the greatest goal scorers in the history of English football for several reasons. Dean was a clinical finisher, capable of scoring from difficult positions and converting a high percentage of his chances. He had a natural talent for finding the back of the net, known for his precise shots and accurate finishing. Incredibly, he registered a huge 37 hat-tricks, 4th on the all-time list behind only Ronaldo, Messi and Pelé. His stats are remarkably similar to a player considered by many to be the best penalty box predator of all time, Germany's Gerd Müller. De Bomber, as Müller was called, bagged 398 goals in 453 matches for Bayern Munich, at a rate of 1.13 goals per game. That compared to 1.14 for Dean. For their countries, the story was similarly impressive. Muller scored 68 times in 62 internationals, at 1.09 goals per game. Dean's record with England saw him at a slightly better ratio of 1.125. More information about his international performance later. Dixie Dean was undoubtedly one of the greatest aerial specialists the game has ever seen. His ability to leap high above the opposition and score with his head was unrivaled in the era. Many recognised Dean as the pioneer of the temple technique. Ordinary players butt the ball with the crown of their heads, wrote a newspaper reporter in the 1920s press. Dean artistically guides it down with the side of his head. Matt Busby, who played against Dean in the 1933 Cup final for Manchester City, once said it was both a delight and a nightmare to play against him, praising the forward for being adept on the ground and extraordinary in the air. Dean was known for his incredible physical strength, which allowed him to overpower and outmuscle defenders. He was a battering ram of a centre-forward, a strapping and stocky figure. Surviving film footage of him shows him knocking defenders and goalkeepers around like they were ninepins. His strength in jumping action made him a consistent threat in the air. An underrated aspect to Dean's game was his footballing IQ. He had a great understanding of the game, a tactical mind that allowed him to make intelligent runs and find space in the box. Dean was always sharply aware of his surroundings and knew how to position himself in the best possible way to score goals. Beside his epic legacy on the domestic stage, Dixie Dean was also an accomplished international player, representing England in a number of games. He was first selected to play for the national team and made his England debut in February 1927, just aged 20. Although playing only 16 times for his country, he scored 18 goals, the best goals to game ratio in his country's history. However, Dean's international career was short-lived, forced to retire from international football in October 1932, aged just 25, due to his national side's withdrawal from FIFA. Despite his brief international career, Dean left a lasting impression on the England national team and is remembered worldwide as one of the most talented players of his era. Since their first title in 1928, Everton have been relegated and then promoted back to the First Division in 1932 and would again claim English football's top prize. A year later, and the Merseysiders would lift the FA Cup, beating Manchester City 3-0 with Dean on the scoresheet. During the final, Dean became one of only two forwards to don the number 9 shirt for the first time, with numbers introduced on the back of players' jerseys. There is an argument that Dean's quality is debatable. When comparing his merits to the skill levels and technicality of today's game, does his talent stand the test of time? Watching the surviving footage of Dean in action, it's clear the English game in the 1920s and 30s was a different sport to what we witness on a regular basis in the Premier League. It was a world of ups and unders, suspect goalkeeping and a constant stream of crosses into the box. And while there were possibly a few soft goals to be had, it should be remembered that defenders were allowed to get away with acts of unrestrained violence. Dean's quality should be celebrated because he would have to rise and meet headers in football boots which wouldn't look out of place on a building site, often on quagmire pitches. The game has changed immeasurably and Dean's style would be considered outdated by today's standards. But you can only be the best of your generation, and Dixie Dean was certainly that. The harsh physical demands of the game, as it was played then of course, took its toll on Dean, and by 1937, aged 30, he went into decline. Eventually he'd be dropped from Everton's first team and moved to third division side Notts County. During his single season with the club, he scored 3 goals in 9 games. In 1939, Dean signed for Irish team Sligo Rovers specifically to help them with the FA Cup campaign. Dixie Dean is a footballing legend and one of the greatest goal scorers in the history of the English game. His incredible goal-scoring feat of 60 goals in one season still stands today. His powerful shots, clinical finishing ability, and charismatic personality made him both a fan favourite and a dominant force in the sport. In 2002, being inducted into English football's Hall of Fame. Bill Shankly wasn't usually forthcoming with praise for Evertonians, but he once said of Dean, "Dixie was one of the greatest centre-forwards there will ever be. His record for goal scoring is the most amazing thing under the sun. He belongs in the company of the supremely great, like Beethoven, Shakespeare, and Rembrandt."